Question 1. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of unexpected performance degradation and a high impact on customer satisfaction if the newly developed predictive model for personalized marketing campaigns is deployed without sufficient real-world validation. Which approach best mitigates these identified risks while ensuring timely delivery of the solution? Option A. Implement the model across all customer segments simultaneously, relying on the comprehensive rollback plan if issues arise. Option B. Deploy the model to a small group of internal users for initial feedback, then proceed with a full rollout to all customers. Option C. Delay the deployment until further extensive laboratory testing can guarantee 100% model stability under all conceivable scenarios. Option D. Conduct a pilot deployment of the model to a single, representative customer segment for a defined period, closely monitoring performance and gathering user feedback before a broader rollout. The correct answer is A. Implement the model across all customer segments simultaneously, relying on the comprehensive rollback plan if issues arise. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in data mining projects, balancing the need for robust model performance with the practical constraints of deployment and ongoing maintenance. The challenge lies in identifying the most effective strategy for integrating a newly developed predictive model into existing business processes without disrupting operations or compromising data integrity. The risk matrix, by highlighting potential issues, necessitates a careful, evidence-based decision on how to proceed, requiring a deep understanding of the model's implications and the business context. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach, which involves a phased rollout of the model to a subset of users or a specific business unit, represents best professional practice because it aligns with principles of responsible data science implementation and risk management. This iterative deployment allows for continuous monitoring of the model's performance in a live environment, identification of unforeseen issues, and collection of user feedback. It minimizes the impact of potential model failures on the entire organization, enabling timely adjustments and refinements before a full-scale deployment. This aligns with ethical considerations of minimizing harm and ensuring the reliability of deployed systems. From a regulatory perspective, this approach facilitates compliance by allowing for thorough validation and auditing of the model's behavior in a controlled manner, demonstrating due diligence in its deployment. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deploying the model immediately to all users without prior validation in a live environment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It risks widespread negative consequences if the model exhibits unexpected biases, inaccuracies, or performance degradation, potentially leading to incorrect business decisions, financial losses, or reputational damage. This approach demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the potential impact on stakeholders. Developing a comprehensive rollback plan, but proceeding with a full-scale deployment without any form of pilot testing or phased introduction, is also professionally unacceptable. A rollback plan is a good contingency. It does not mitigate the initial risks of a flawed deployment. It suggests a reactive rather than a proactive approach to risk management, failing to leverage opportunities for early detection and correction of issues. This can be seen as a failure to adhere to best practices in system deployment and change management, which prioritize minimizing disruption and ensuring stability. Focusing solely on the technical accuracy of the model in a controlled testing environment and ignoring the complexities of real-world integration and user adoption is another critical failure. While technical accuracy is essential, it is only one facet of a successful data mining implementation. The model must also be interpretable, usable, and integrated seamlessly into existing workflows. Overlooking these aspects can lead to low user adoption, resistance, and ultimately, the failure of the model to deliver its intended business value, which can have downstream regulatory implications if the model is used for decision-making that impacts individuals or compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, risk-aware approach to data mining implementation. This involves 1. Thoroughly understanding the business context and potential impact of the model. 2. Conducting rigorous testing and validation in controlled environments. 3. Prioritizing phased or pilot deployments to gather real-world feedback and identify issues early. 4. Establishing clear monitoring mechanisms and performance metrics for the deployed model. 5. Developing comprehensive contingency and rollback plans. 6. Ensuring clear communication and training for end users. This systematic process, grounded in risk management and iterative improvement, ensures that data mining solutions are not only technically sound, but also practically effective and ethically deployed, minimizing regulatory exposure and maximizing business value. Question 2. The assessment process reveals that a business partner requires insights into customer purchasing behavior to identify potential upselling opportunities. They have requested access to all available customer data within the organization systems to facilitate this analysis using IBM SPSS Modeler. What is the most appropriate initial step for the data mining professional to take? Option A. Assume that the business partner's request implies consent for the use of all customer data and begin building predictive models in IBM SPSS Modeler. Option B. Initiate a detailed discussion with the business partner to precisely define the specific data elements required for identifying upselling opportunities and document the agreed-upon scope and purpose of the data analysis. Option C. Proceed with extracting all available customer data from the organization's databases and load it into IBM SPSS Modeler for exploratory analysis. Option D. Begin building segmentation models in IBM SPSS Modeler using readily accessible customer demographic data, without further clarification on the full scope of all available customer data. The correct answer is B. Initiate a detailed discussion with the business partner to precisely define the specific data elements required for identifying upselling opportunities and document the agreed-upon scope and purpose of the data analysis. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data mining projects where the business partner's understanding of data privacy and ethical data usage may not align with best practices or regulatory expectations. The professional challenge lies in balancing the business partner's desire for actionable insights with the imperative to protect sensitive information and comply with data governance principles. Misinterpreting or overlooking these requirements can lead to significant reputational damage, legal penalties, and erosion of trust. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the data mining process, as facilitated by IBM SPSS Modeler, adheres to ethical standards and any applicable, though not explicitly stated for this exam's jurisdiction, general principles of responsible data handling apply. Data protection guidelines. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes the importance of understanding and documenting the business partner's data requirements before commencing the data mining process. This proactive step ensures that the project scope is clearly defined, potential data privacy concerns are identified early, and appropriate data handling protocols can be established. By focusing on the purpose of the data mining and the specific data elements needed, it allows for a targeted and compliant approach. This aligns with the principle of data minimization and purpose limitation, ensuring that only necessary data is accessed and processed, thereby reducing the risk of unauthorized access or misuse. This approach fosters transparency and collaboration, building a foundation of trust and compliance. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with data extraction and analysis based on a broad, undefined request for all relevant customer data. This is professionally unacceptable because it violates the principle of data minimization and increases the risk of processing sensitive or irrelevant information without a clear business justification. It also bypasses the crucial step of assessing data privacy implications, potentially leading to regulatory breaches if personal or confidential data is exposed. Another incorrect approach is to assume that the business partner has implicitly approved the use of all available data for their analysis. This assumption is dangerous, as it absolves the data mining professional of their responsibility to ensure compliance and ethical data handling. It neglects the need for explicit consent or a clear legal basis for data processing, which are fundamental to responsible data governance. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on technical implementation within IBM SPSS Modeler without considering the upstream data acquisition and downstream usage implications. While technical proficiency is important, it must be guided by an understanding of the data's origin, its sensitivity, and its intended use. Ignoring these aspects can lead to the creation of models that inadvertently rely on or expose protected information. Even if the modeling techniques themselves are sound, professional reasoning, professionals should adopt a phased approach to data mining projects. The initial phase should always involve a thorough requirements gathering and scoping exercise. This includes understanding the business objectives, identifying the specific data needed to achieve those objectives, and critically assessing any potential privacy or ethical concerns associated with the data. Documentation of these requirements and approvals is essential. Subsequently, data acquisition and preparation should be performed with a focus on data quality, relevance, and compliance. The modeling phase should then leverage IBM SPSS modelers' capabilities to build robust and interpretable models, always with an eye towards the ethical implications of the insights generated. Finally, the deployment and interpretation of results must ensure that sensitive information is not inadvertently revealed and that the insights are used responsibly. This structured, risk-aware approach ensures that data mining projects deliver value while upholding ethical standards and regulatory compliance. Question 3. Governance review demonstrates that a business partner has deployed an IBM SPSS modeler data mining model without a comprehensive post-development evaluation of its performance, interpretability, and potential biases. Which of the following approaches to best practice evaluation is most professionally sound and ethically responsible? Option A. Prioritizing the speed of deployment by skipping independent validation and focusing only on the model's ability to generate immediate business insights. Option B. Evaluating the model's performance solely based on its statistical significance without considering its practical implications or potential for unintended consequences. Option C. Conducting a thorough review of the model's predictive accuracy against historical data, assessing its interpretability for business stakeholders, and performing an independent validation to identify any potential biases or fairness issues. Option D. Relying on the developer's internal testing results and anecdotal feedback from early users to confirm the model's effectiveness. The correct answer is C. Conducting a thorough review of the model's predictive accuracy against historical data, assessing its interpretability for business stakeholders, and performing an independent validation to identify any potential biases or fairness issues. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a business partner to balance the immediate need for actionable insights from data mining with the long-term imperative of robust model governance and validation. The pressure to deliver results quickly can lead to shortcuts in the best practice evaluation process, potentially compromising the reliability and ethical implications of the deployed models. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the evaluation is thorough, objective, and aligned with established data mining best practices, even under time constraints. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and documented evaluation of the data mining model's performance against predefined business objectives and technical criteria. This includes assessing model accuracy, robustness, and generalizability, as well as its alignment with ethical considerations and potential biases. This rigorous evaluation ensures that the model is not only effective, but also reliable, fair, and compliant with the spirit of responsible data mining, which is implicitly expected in business partner engagements even if not explicitly codified in a specific regulation for this exam. It fosters trust and demonstrates a commitment to quality and ethical data handling. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach fails by solely focusing on the model's predictive accuracy without considering its interpretability or potential for bias. This is professionally unacceptable because a highly accurate model that cannot be understood or that perpetuates unfair outcomes is detrimental. It violates the implicit ethical obligation to ensure data mining solutions are transparent and equitable. Another incorrect approach is to skip independent validation, relying only on the developer's internal testing. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it bypasses a critical control mechanism for ensuring model integrity and objectivity. Independent validation is a cornerstone of good governance, preventing self-serving assessments and ensuring the model's performance is objectively verifiable. A further incorrect approach involves deploying the model based on anecdotal evidence of its perceived effectiveness rather than empirical evaluation. This is professionally unsound and ethically questionable. It relies on subjective judgment over objective data, increasing the risk of deploying a flawed or inappropriate model, which could lead to poor business decisions and reputational damage. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the evaluation criteria and success metrics before model development commences. During the evaluation phase, they must adhere to a predefined checklist that includes performance metrics, interpretability checks, bias assessments, and independent validation. If time constraints are a factor, the process should involve prioritizing critical evaluation steps and clearly documenting any deviations and their justifications, rather than omitting them entirely. This ensures accountability and maintains the integrity of the data mining process. Question 4. The control framework reveals that a business partner intends to utilize IBM SPSS Modeler for a new customer segmentation initiative, aiming to identify high-value customer groups for targeted marketing campaigns. The partner expresses a desire to expedite the deployment, suggesting that a formal impact assessment might be an unnecessary bureaucratic step given the perceived low risk of the initiative. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure responsible and compliant use of IBM SPSS Modeler in this context? Option A. Advise the business partner to proceed with the deployment, but to manually review the generated customer segments for any obvious anomalies or biases before launching the marketing campaign. Option B. Defer the decision to deploy IBM SPSS Modeler until a comprehensive review of the entire IBM SPSS Modeler platform's capabilities and limitations has been completed, regardless of the specific initiative. Option C. Proceed with the deployment immediately to capitalize on the marketing opportunity, assuming that standard data anonymization techniques will sufficiently mitigate any potential risks. Option D. Initiate a formal impact assessment to identify potential risks related to data privacy, algorithmic bias, and compliance with data protection regulations before proceeding with the deployment. Correct answer is D. Initiate a formal impact assessment to identify potential risks related to data privacy, algorithmic bias, and compliance with data protection regulations before proceeding with the deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the business partner is seeking to leverage IBM SPSS Modeler for a new, potentially sensitive application without a thorough understanding of the downstream implications. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the desire for innovation and efficiency with the imperative to conduct a responsible and compliant impact assessment. The partner's inclination to proceed without a formal assessment, driven by perceived urgency or a lack of familiarity with regulatory requirements, necessitates a firm but educational response. The correct approach, which involves initiating a formal impact assessment before proceeding with the deployment of IBM SPSS Modeler for the new application, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the principles of responsible data handling and risk management, which are implicitly or explicitly embedded in many regulatory frameworks governing data usage and technology deployment. A formal impact assessment ensures that potential risks, such as data privacy breaches, bias in algorithms, or non-compliance with data protection laws, are identified, evaluated, and mitigated proactively. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining trust, avoiding legal repercussions, and ensuring the ethical use of data mining techniques. Proceeding without a formal impact assessment, as suggested by the business partner, presents significant regulatory and ethical failures. Firstly, it bypasses established governance procedures designed to safeguard data and prevent misuse, potentially violating principles of data minimization and purpose limitation if sensitive data is processed without proper justification or safeguards. Secondly, it risks deploying a system that could inadvertently perpetuate or amplify biases within the data, leading to discriminatory outcomes, which is a direct ethical and often regulatory concern. Thirdly, it exposes the organization to potential legal liabilities and reputational damage should a data breach or compliance issue arise from the unassessed deployment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the organization's internal policies and relevant external regulations. When faced with a request to deploy new technology or leverage existing tools for novel applications, a professional should always advocate for a structured risk assessment and impact analysis. This involves identifying the scope and purpose of the new application, understanding the types of data involved and their sensitivity, evaluating potential risks to data privacy, security, and fairness, and determining necessary controls and mitigation strategies. If a formal assessment is not explicitly mandated by a specific regulation for this scenario, the professional should still apply the principles of due diligence and responsible innovation, which are foundational to ethical business practices. Question 5. The evaluation methodology shows that a predictive model for customer churn has achieved 95% accuracy. However, the business team is concerned that this metric alone does not adequately capture the financial implications of misclassifying customers who are likely to churn versus those who are not. What is the most appropriate approach to evaluate the model's effectiveness in this scenario? Option A. Employ a complex statistical metric like AUC, area under the ROC curve, without further business context, assuming its technical sophistication guarantees superior evaluation. Option B. Evaluate the model based on its performance on a single, randomly selected subset of the data, as this provides a representative sample for assessment. Option C. Focus solely on maximizing overall accuracy, as it is a universally accepted measure of model performance and indicates a high level of predictive power. Option D. Utilize a metric that considers the differential costs of false positives and false negatives, such as a cost-sensitive evaluation or a metric like profit curves, to assess the model's true business value. The correct answer is D. Utilize a metric that considers the differential costs of false positives and false negatives, such as a cost-sensitive evaluation or a metric like profit curves, to assess the model's true business value. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in data mining projects, ensuring that the evaluation of a predictive model's performance is both accurate and aligned with business objectives, while adhering to ethical and regulatory considerations. The professional challenge lies in selecting an evaluation metric that truly reflects the model's utility in a business context, rather than simply optimizing for a single statistical measure that might be misleading. Careful judgment is required to balance statistical rigor with practical business impact, and to avoid potential biases or misinterpretations that could lead to poor business decisions or regulatory noncompliance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it focuses on an evaluation metric that directly addresses the business problem and its associated costs and benefits. By considering the relative costs of false positives and false negatives, this approach ensures that the model's performance is assessed in a way that is financially meaningful and strategically sound. This aligns with the principle of responsible data mining, where the ultimate goal is to drive tangible business value while minimizing risk. It also implicitly supports regulatory compliance by ensuring that decisions based on the model are well justified and not driven by potentially misleading statistical artifacts. An incorrect approach that solely focuses on overall accuracy might be professionally unacceptable because it fails to account for the differential impact of misclassifications. In many business scenarios, the cost of a false negative, e.g., failing to identify a high-risk customer, can be significantly higher than the cost of a false positive, e.g., incorrectly flagging a low-risk customer. Relying on overall accuracy can lead to a model that appears good statistically but performs poorly in practice, resulting in missed opportunities or increased losses. This can also lead to ethical concerns if certain groups are disproportionately affected by misclassifications due to the model's blind spot regarding specific error types. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes a single, complex statistical measure without clear business interpretation is also professionally flawed. While advanced metrics can offer deeper insights, their value is diminished if they cannot be translated into actionable business understanding. This can lead to a disconnect between the technical evaluation and the business stakeholders, hindering effective decision-making and potentially leading to the deployment of a model that is not truly understood or trusted. This can also create regulatory risks if the model's performance cannot be clearly explained and justified to auditors or regulators. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Clearly define the business problem and the desired outcomes. 2. Identify the potential costs and benefits associated with different types of predictions: true positives, true negatives, false positives, false negatives. 3. Select evaluation metrics that directly reflect these business costs and benefits. 4. Consider the interpretability of the chosen metrics for business stakeholders. 5. Validate the model's performance using these metrics on unseen data. 6. Continuously monitor the model's performance in production and retrain or recalibrate as necessary. This systematic approach ensures that the data mining project delivers real business value and operates within ethical and regulatory boundaries. Question 6. Assessment of the ethical and regulatory implications of a predictive model designed to identify potential high-value customers, considering the possibility of unintended discriminatory outcomes based on demographic correlations within the training data. Option A. Focus solely on optimizing the model's predictive accuracy, as regulatory compliance is a separate concern to be addressed only if specific complaints arise. Option B. Proceed with the deployment of the model as planned, assuming that any identified correlations are purely coincidental and do not represent a basis for discrimination. Option C. Implement the model immediately and gather feedback from customers to identify any potential issues, rather than preemptively assessing for bias. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive bias assessment and fairness audit of the model's predictions across different demographic groups, and develop mitigation strategies to ensure equitable outcomes before deploying the model. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive bias assessment and fairness audit of the model's predictions across different demographic groups and develop mitigation strategies to ensure equitable outcomes before deploying the model. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in data mining projects, ensuring that the insights derived from data are used ethically and in compliance with relevant regulations, particularly concerning customer privacy and fair treatment. The professional challenge lies in balancing the business objective of leveraging data for competitive advantage with the imperative to protect individuals from potential harm or discrimination that could arise from data analysis. Careful judgment is required to identify and mitigate risks associated with data interpretation and application. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the potential downstream impacts of the data mining results. By actively seeking to identify and address potential biases or discriminatory outcomes before deployment, the business partner demonstrates a commitment to responsible data use and adherence to ethical principles that underpin regulatory frameworks. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of regulatory noncompliance and reputational damage, fostering trust with clients and end users. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical accuracy of the model without considering its real-world implications fails to meet regulatory expectations for fairness and non-discrimination. This could lead to the unintentional perpetuation of existing societal biases, resulting in discriminatory outcomes for certain customer segments. Such a failure would violate principles of ethical data handling and potentially contravene regulations designed to protect individuals from unfair treatment based on data-driven decisions. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of deployment over due diligence in assessing ethical implications overlooks the critical need for responsible innovation. This haste can lead to the overlooking of subtle but significant risks, such as privacy breaches or the misuse of sensitive information, which are often subject to strict regulatory oversight. The failure to conduct a comprehensive ethical review before implementation exposes the business partner and their client to significant legal and reputational liabilities. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-stage review. First, clearly define the business objectives and the data to be used. Second, conduct a thorough data exploration to understand its characteristics and potential limitations. Third, develop and validate the data mining model, focusing on both technical performance and interpretability. Fourth, critically assess the model's outputs for potential biases, fairness concerns, and compliance with relevant data protection and anti-discrimination laws. Fifth, develop mitigation strategies for any identified risks. Finally, implement the solution with ongoing monitoring and evaluation to ensure continued ethical and regulatory compliance. Question 7. Comparative studies suggest that when business partners are tasked with identifying customer segments for targeted marketing campaigns using IBM SPSS modeler, the choice of clustering algorithm can significantly impact the fairness and interpretability of the resulting segments. Considering the implicit need for responsible data use and the potential for algorithmic bias, which approach to algorithm selection and validation best aligns with professional best practices for business partners? Option A. Select the algorithm that demonstrates the highest statistical significance in segment separation, regardless of its underlying assumptions or potential for bias, and proceed with the most interpretable output. Option B. Prioritize the algorithm that requires the least amount of data per processing, as efficiency is paramount for business partners delivering rapid insights. Option C. Choose an algorithm known for its robustness against common data anomalies and biases, and validate its performance across diverse demographic subsets of the data to ensure equitable representation and prevent discriminatory outcomes. Option D. Opt for the most complex algorithm available in IBM SPSS Modeler, assuming that greater complexity inherently leads to more accurate and valuable insights for marketing. Correct answer is A. Select the algorithm that demonstrates the highest statistical significance in segment separation, regardless of its underlying assumptions or potential for bias, and proceed with the most interpretable output. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data mining projects where business partners, often with varying levels of technical understanding and data governance awareness, are involved. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that the data mining process, particularly the selection and application of algorithms, adheres to the principles of responsible data handling and ethical use, as implicitly guided by the spirit of regulations concerning data privacy and fair business practices. Even if not explicitly detailed in the C2020-013 syllabus itself, the pressure to deliver quick insights can sometimes overshadow the need for rigorous validation and understanding of algorithmic biases, creating a professional dilemma. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes the importance of understanding the underlying assumptions and potential biases of the chosen data mining algorithm. This aligns with best professional practice by promoting transparency and accountability in the data mining process. By selecting an algorithm that is known to be less susceptible to introducing or amplifying biases, and by validating its performance against diverse subsets of the data, the business partner demonstrates a commitment to ethical data mining and responsible business conduct. This proactive stance helps prevent discriminatory outcomes and ensures that the insights derived are reliable and fair, thereby upholding the integrity of the data mining project and the reputation of the business. This approach implicitly supports the regulatory intent of preventing unfair discrimination and ensuring data is used in a manner that respects individuals and business integrity. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves prioritizing the algorithm that yields the most statistically significant results without considering its potential for bias or its suitability for the specific business context. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it can lead to decisions based on flawed or discriminatory patterns, potentially violating principles of fairness and equal treatment, even if not explicitly codified in the C2020-013 syllabus. Another incorrect approach is to solely rely on the default settings of an algorithm without understanding its parameters or how they might influence the outcome. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and can result in unintended consequences, such as overfitting or underfitting the data, leading to unreliable insights and potentially misinformed business decisions. This failure to critically engage with the tool's functionality can lead to outcomes that are not robust or justifiable. A third incorrect approach is to select an algorithm based purely on its perceived complexity or novelty, without a clear understanding of its applicability to the business problem or its potential impact. This can lead to the use of inappropriate tools, generating irrelevant or misleading results and wasting resources, which is professionally unsound and can undermine trust in data-driven decision-making. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the business problem, the data characteristics, and the implications of algorithmic choices. This involves a thorough assessment of potential biases, the interpretability of results, and the alignment of the chosen algorithm with ethical considerations and the overall project objectives. Before selecting and deploying any data mining algorithm, professionals should ask, does this algorithm align with our commitment to fair and responsible data use? And are we equipped to understand and mitigate any potential biases it might introduce? This critical self-reflection, coupled with a commitment to validation and transparency, forms the bedrock of professional data mining practice. Question 8. Market research demonstrates that a new predictive model developed using IBM SPSS Modeler has the potential to significantly improve customer retention rates. However, the model relies on analyzing historical customer transaction data, including purchase history and demographic information. Before deploying this model, what is the most appropriate step to ensure responsible data mining practices and mitigate potential risks? Option A. Focus solely on the technical performance metrics of the model to confirm its accuracy and predictive power. Option B. Proceed with deployment immediately to capitalize on the predicted business benefits, assuming existing data privacy policies are sufficient. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive data impact assessment to identify potential risks to customer privacy and data security and document mitigation strategies. Option D. Review the original data collection forms to ensure the data used was legally obtained, without considering the model's specific processing activities. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive data impact assessment to identify potential risks to customer privacy and data security, and document mitigation strategies. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data mining projects where the potential impact of a new predictive model on customer privacy and data usage needs to be assessed. A professional challenge lies in balancing the business objective of leveraging data for competitive advantage with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect customer information and ensure transparency. A failure to conduct a thorough impact assessment can lead to regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and erosion of customer trust. The complexity arises from identifying all potential risks, understanding the scope of data processing, and determining appropriate mitigation strategies within the defined regulatory framework. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive impact assessment that aligns with the principles of data protection and responsible data mining. This includes identifying the types of personal data being processed, the purpose of the processing, the potential risks to individuals' rights and freedoms, and the measures in place to mitigate these risks. This aligns with the spirit of responsible data stewardship and proactive risk management, which are implicitly encouraged by regulatory frameworks governing data usage and privacy, even if not explicitly detailed in the C2020-013 syllabus itself. The focus is on understanding the why and how of data usage and its potential consequences, ensuring that the deployment of the model is both effective and compliant with broader ethical considerations of data mining. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed with model deployment solely based on its predicted business value, without any formal assessment of its impact on customer data. This represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It disregards the potential for unintended consequences, such as discriminatory outcomes or unauthorized data exposure, which could violate principles of fair processing and data minimization. Another incorrect approach is to conduct a superficial review, focusing only on the technical aspects of the model and overlooking the broader implications for data subjects. This fails to address the core purpose of an impact assessment, which is to identify and mitigate risks to individuals. A third incorrect approach might involve relying on outdated or irrelevant privacy policies, failing to account for the specific data processing activities of the new model. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adapt to evolving data usage scenarios, potentially leading to non-compliance with current data protection expectations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to data mining projects. This involves proactively identifying potential impacts, assessing their severity, and implementing appropriate controls. Before deploying any new data mining model, a thorough impact assessment should be conducted, documenting the findings and any mitigation strategies. This process should involve relevant stakeholders, including data privacy officers or legal counsel where applicable, to ensure a comprehensive evaluation. The decision-making process should prioritize responsible data handling, transparency, and adherence to ethical principles, ensuring that business objectives are pursued without compromising individual rights or regulatory compliance. Question 9. To address the challenge of ensuring responsible data mining practices within a business partner context, a data mining project has identified potential risks related to data privacy and model bias. Which of the following represents the most professionally sound and regulatory compliant approach to managing these identified risks? Option A. Develop a detailed risk mitigation plan that outlines specific actions, controls, and responsibilities for each identified risk, ensuring these are integrated into the project lifecycle and align with relevant data protection and ethical guidelines. Option B. Document the identified risks in a project report and assume that general organizational policies will adequately address them without further specific action. Option C. Implement broad, non-specific security measures across the project and postpone detailed risk mitigation planning until after the model has been deployed. Option D. Focus solely on the technical aspects of model development and assume that any risks will be addressed by the business partner's existing compliance department without direct project team involvement. The correct answer is A. Develop a detailed risk mitigation plan that outlines specific actions, controls, and responsibilities for each identified risk, ensuring these are integrated into the project lifecycle and align with relevant data protection and ethical guidelines. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data mining projects where the initial risk assessment, while identifying potential issues, lacks the specificity and actionable detail required for effective mitigation. The professional challenge lies in translating broad risk categories into concrete, measurable steps that can be integrated into the project lifecycle and align with regulatory expectations for data handling and privacy. The need for careful judgment arises from balancing the desire for comprehensive risk identification with the practicalities of project execution and resource allocation. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves developing a detailed risk mitigation plan that directly addresses the identified risks with specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, smart actions. This aligns with best professional practice by ensuring that identified risks are not merely acknowledged but actively managed. For instance, if a risk relates to data privacy, the mitigation plan would specify anonymization techniques, access controls, and data retention policies, all of which are crucial for compliance with data protection regulations. This proactive and granular approach demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to responsible data mining, which is a cornerstone of ethical and regulatory compliance. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to simply document the identified risks without proposing any concrete mitigation strategies. This fails to meet professional standards because it leaves the project vulnerable to the very issues that were flagged. It represents a failure in risk management, potentially leading to regulatory breaches if data privacy or security is compromised. Another incorrect approach is to implement generic, non-specific controls that do not directly map to the identified risks. This is professionally unacceptable as it creates a false sense of security while leaving the project exposed to specific vulnerabilities. For example, a general statement about data security without detailing encryption protocols or access logging is insufficient. A third incorrect approach is to defer all mitigation planning to the end of the project. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it prioritizes project completion over the responsible handling of sensitive data throughout its lifecycle. Many data protection regulations require risk assessment and mitigation to be considered from the outset and integrated into the design of data processing activities. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with a thorough understanding of the project's objectives and the data involved. This should be followed by a comprehensive risk identification phase, considering potential impacts on data privacy, security, accuracy, and business outcomes. Crucially, each identified risk must be analyzed for its likelihood and potential impact. The next step is to develop a detailed, actionable mitigation plan that assigns responsibility and timelines for each control. This plan should be reviewed and approved by relevant stakeholders and integrated into the project management framework. Regular monitoring and review of the risk landscape and the effectiveness of mitigation strategies are essential throughout the project lifecycle to ensure ongoing compliance and responsible data mining practices. Question 10. The control framework reveals that a proposed customer segmentation strategy designed to maximize campaign response rates and thus revenue has identified a segment with a significantly higher propensity to purchase a particular product. However, preliminary analysis suggests this segment is disproportionately composed of individuals from a specific socio-economic background, potentially leading to targeted marketing that could be perceived as exploitative or exclusionary. What is the most ethically responsible course of action for the data mining professional? Option A. Proceed with the segmentation as planned, focusing on the statistically validated higher response rates to achieve the business objective, and address any potential concerns only if they arise after campaign deployment. Option B. Conduct a thorough impact assessment to understand the potential discriminatory effects of the segmentation. Explore alternative segmentation approaches that mitigate bias, and only proceed with the campaign if the risks are demonstrably managed and acceptable. Option C. Halt the campaign immediately and abandon the segmentation strategy, deeming it too risky due to the potential for negative perception, even if it means foregoing significant revenue opportunities. Option D. Inform the business stakeholders about the potential for negative perception, but proceed with the campaign, relying on their judgment to manage any public relations issues that may arise. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the segmentation as planned, focusing on the statistically validated higher response rates to achieve the business objective, and address any potential concerns only if they arise after campaign deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it forces a data mining professional to balance the immediate business objective of revenue generation with the ethical imperative of responsible data usage and the potential for discriminatory outcomes. The pressure to deliver a profitable campaign, coupled with the perceived effectiveness of a segmentation strategy, can create a strong temptation to overlook potential ethical pitfalls. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the pursuit of business goals does not lead to unfair or harmful practices. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, unbiased evaluation of the segmentation model's impact before deployment. This involves actively seeking out and mitigating potential biases, aligning with the ethical principles of fairness and non-discrimination that underpin responsible data mining. By conducting an impact assessment and considering alternative, less discriminatory segmentation strategies, the professional demonstrates a commitment to ethical data science and avoids potential regulatory scrutiny and reputational damage. This proactive stance ensures that the business benefits derived from data mining are achieved in a manner that respects individual rights and societal well-being. An incorrect approach that proceeds with the segmentation without further investigation fails to uphold ethical standards by potentially perpetuating or exacerbating existing societal biases. This could lead to discriminatory practices, where certain groups are unfairly targeted or excluded from beneficial offers, or disproportionately exposed to less favorable ones. Such actions could violate principles of fairness and equity, and depending on the specific jurisdiction's data protection and anti-discrimination laws, could result in significant legal and financial penalties. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on the statistical accuracy of the segmentation, ignoring its real-world implications, is also professionally unacceptable. While statistical validity is important, it does not absolve the professional of the responsibility to consider the ethical and societal impact of their work. Overlooking potential discriminatory outcomes in favor of purely technical metrics demonstrates a lack of ethical awareness and can lead to unintended negative consequences for individuals and the business. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-stage evaluation. First, understand the business objective and the proposed data mining approach. Second, critically assess the data used for potential biases and the segmentation methodology for inherent discriminatory potential. Third, conduct an impact assessment to understand how the segmentation might affect different demographic groups. Fourth, explore alternative segmentation strategies that achieve business goals with minimal or no discriminatory impact. Finally, document the decision-making process, including the rationale for choosing a particular approach and the steps taken to mitigate ethical risks. This structured approach ensures that ethical considerations are integrated throughout the data mining lifecycle, not treated as an afterthought. Question 11. The evaluation methodology shows that the business partner has developed an IBM SPSS modeler data mining solution to segment customers for targeted marketing campaigns. The methodology includes a step to assess potential risks associated with the data and the model. Which of the following risk assessment approaches best aligns with regulatory expectations for responsible data mining? Option A. Focusing solely on the potential for increased sales revenue generated by the targeted marketing campaigns, assuming that any associated risks are secondary. Option B. Reviewing the model's accuracy metrics and ensuring the data used for training is representative of the overall customer base. Option C. conducting a thorough review of the data lineage, identifying all potential sources of sensitive information, and assessing the security controls in place for data storage and processing. Option D, relying on the client's existing data governance policies without conducting an independent assessment of the data mining project's specific risks. The correct answer is B, reviewing the model's accuracy metrics and ensuring the data used for training is representative of the overall customer base. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a business partner to balance the need for efficient data mining with the imperative to conduct a thorough and compliant risk assessment. The challenge lies in identifying potential data privacy and security risks that might not be immediately apparent during the initial model development phase, especially when dealing with sensitive customer information. A superficial risk assessment could lead to regulatory breaches and reputational damage. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it integrates a proactive and comprehensive risk assessment into the data mining lifecycle. This aligns with the principles of data protection and responsible AI development, ensuring that potential harms are identified and mitigated before they materialize. By systematically evaluating data sources, model outputs, and deployment contexts against established risk frameworks, the business partner demonstrates due diligence and adherence to ethical data handling standards. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining trust with clients and regulatory bodies. An incorrect approach that overlooks the potential for bias in the training data represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an oversight could lead to discriminatory outcomes, violating principles of fairness and potentially contravening data protection regulations that mandate the prevention of bias processing. Another incorrect approach that fails to consider the security implications of storing and processing sensitive customer data in the chosen environment exposes the organization to data breaches, which is a direct violation of data security mandates and can result in severe penalties. A third incorrect approach that neglects to document the risk assessment process leaves the organization vulnerable during audits and unable to demonstrate compliance, failing to meet the transparency and accountability requirements often embedded in regulatory frameworks. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with understanding the specific regulatory landscape governing data mining and risk assessment within their jurisdiction. This involves identifying all relevant data protection laws, industry guidelines, and internal policies. The next step is to conduct a comprehensive risk identification exercise, considering various categories of risk, including privacy, security, bias, and operational risks. For each identified risk, an assessment of its likelihood and impact should be performed. Mitigation strategies should then be developed and implemented, followed by ongoing monitoring and review. Documentation of the entire process is essential for demonstrating compliance and facilitating continuous improvement. Question 12. System analysis indicates that a business partner, utilizing IBM SPSS modeler for a client project, has discovered that the client wishes to incorporate a dataset for analysis that was obtained through means not explicitly authorized for this specific project, and which may contain personally identifiable information without proper consent mechanisms. The business partner recognizes the potential for this data to yield more insightful results, but is aware of the ethical implications and potential regulatory breaches. What is the most appropriate course of action for the business partner? Option A. Inform the client that the unauthorized dataset cannot be used and unilaterally proceed with the project using only the approved data without further discussion or explanation of alternatives. Option B. Utilize the unauthorized dataset for the analysis, but attempt to anonymize the data as much as possible during the process, without explicitly informing the client of the initial data acquisition issue. Option C. Politely refuse to use the unauthorized dataset, explain the ethical and regulatory concerns to the client, and propose to proceed with the project using only approved and properly consented data sources, potentially adjusting the project scope accordingly. Option D. Proceed with the analysis using the unauthorized dataset, assuring the client that the data will be handled with the utmost care and discretion to avoid any issues. The correct answer is C. Politely refuse to use the unauthorized dataset, explain the ethical and regulatory concerns to the client, and propose to proceed with the project using only approved and properly consented data sources, potentially adjusting the project scope accordingly. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge where a business partner, leveraging IBM SPSS modeler for data mining, faces a conflict between delivering a potentially lucrative project and adhering to ethical data handling principles. The pressure to secure business and the perceived benefit of using a broader dataset, even if it includes sensitive information, creates a tension between commercial interests and responsible data stewardship. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, ensuring that the pursuit of business objectives does not compromise ethical standards or regulatory compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves clearly communicating the ethical and regulatory limitations to the client and proposing alternative, compliant methods. This aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing data privacy and security, which are fundamental ethical obligations and often mandated by data protection regulations. By refusing to use the unauthorized data and offering to proceed with a revised scope using only approved data sources, the business partner demonstrates integrity, builds trust, and upholds the reputation of both themselves and IBM SPSS modeler. This proactive communication and commitment to ethical conduct prevent potential legal repercussions and reputational damage. Incorrect approaches analysis. Using the unauthorized data without explicit consent or proper anonymization would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It violates principles of data privacy and could contravene data protection laws, leading to severe penalties, legal action, and loss of client trust. This approach prioritizes short-term gain over long-term ethical responsibility and legal compliance. Proceeding with the project using the unauthorized data, but with a vague promise to handle it carefully, is also professionally unacceptable. This approach lacks concrete safeguards and relies on subjective interpretation of careful handling, which is insufficient to meet regulatory requirements or ethical standards. It creates a high risk of data breaches or misuse, exposing the business partner and the client to legal and reputational damage. Ignoring the client's request and proceeding with the project using only the approved data without any discussion is also problematic. While it avoids the immediate ethical breach, it fails to address the client's underlying desire for a more comprehensive analysis and misses an opportunity to educate the client on data governance best practices. This can lead to client dissatisfaction and a perception of unresponsiveness, potentially jeopardizing the business relationship. Professional reasoning. Professionals in data mining should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with identifying potential ethical and regulatory risks. This involves understanding the data sources, their permissions, and the applicable data protection laws. When faced with a request that raises concerns, the next step is to clearly articulate these concerns to all stakeholders, explaining the rationale based on ethical principles and regulatory requirements. Subsequently, professionals should explore and propose alternative solutions that achieve the client's objectives while remaining compliant and ethical. This iterative process of risk assessment, transparent communication, and collaborative problem-solving ensures responsible data utilization and fosters sustainable business relationships. Question 13. Consider a scenario where a business partner is tasked with analyzing customer purchasing patterns to identify potential cross-selling opportunities for a retail client. The available data includes customer transaction histories, demographic information, and product details. The business partner needs to develop insights that are actionable for the client, but must also ensure that no individual customer's sensitive information is compromised or inadvertently revealed. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for actionable insights with the imperative of data privacy and regulatory compliance? Option A. Utilize publicly available aggregated sales data from similar retail sectors, combined with the client's anonymized product catalog, to infer potential cross-selling opportunities without directly accessing the client's customer data. Option B. Directly analyze individual customer transaction histories and demographic profiles to build detailed customer personas and predict future purchases, assuming the client will handle the raw data responsibly. Option C. Focus on building predictive models that identify high-value customers based on their current spending, without explicitly analyzing demographic or detailed transaction data to suggest generic product recommendations. Option D. Anonymize and aggregate customer transaction data and demographic information to identify broad purchasing trends and segment customers based on aggregated behaviors before applying data mining techniques to uncover cross-selling opportunities. The correct answer is D. Anonymize and aggregate customer transaction data and demographic information to identify broad purchasing trends and segment customers based on aggregated behaviors before applying data mining techniques to uncover cross-selling opportunities. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a business partner to balance the immediate need for actionable insights with the ethical and regulatory imperative to protect sensitive customer data. The core tension lies in extracting value from data without compromising privacy or security, which is a fundamental principle in data mining and business intelligence. Careful judgment is required to select methods that are both effective and compliant. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data anonymization and aggregation before analysis. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, which are often enshrined in data protection regulations. By transforming raw customer data into aggregated, anonymized insights, the business partner can derive business value without exposing individual identities or sensitive personal information. This proactive approach mitigates the risk of data breaches, unauthorized access, and noncompliance with data privacy laws, thereby fostering trust with clients and adhering to ethical data handling standards. An incorrect approach that involves direct analysis of personally identifiable information, PI, without proper anonymization or consent would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to violations of data protection laws, resulting in substantial fines, reputational damage, and loss of client trust. Another incorrect approach, such as using publicly available but potentially sensitive data without considering its source or potential for re-identification, also poses ethical risks and could inadvertently lead to privacy violations. Finally, an approach that focuses solely on predictive modeling, without considering the downstream implications of how the predictions might be used, or if they could indirectly reveal sensitive information, is also problematic, as it neglects the broader ethical responsibility associated with data-driven insights. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the data's sensitivity and the applicable regulatory landscape. This involves identifying PII, assessing potential risks of re-identification, and determining the appropriate level of anonymization or aggregation required. The next step is to select data mining techniques that are compatible with the anonymized or aggregated data. Throughout the process, continuous ethical review and adherence to data governance policies are crucial. When in doubt, seeking legal or compliance guidance is a prudent step to ensure all actions are both effective and compliant. Question 14. The investigation demonstrates that a business partner is seeking to leverage IBM SPSS modeler for customer segmentation to identify high-value prospects. The primary objective is to optimize marketing spend by targeting segments most likely to convert. However, concerns have been raised regarding the potential for the segmentation strategy to inadvertently exclude or unfairly target certain demographic groups, leading to potential reputational damage and customer dissatisfaction. Which of the following approaches best addresses these concerns while adhering to responsible data mining practices? Option A. Implement a segmentation model that prioritizes predictive accuracy above all else, assuming that a statistically sound model will inherently be fair. Option B. Develop segmentation models, conduct thorough bias and fairness assessments on the resulting segments, and establish a continuous monitoring process for model performance and segment characteristics post-deployment. Option C. Focus solely on the immediate profitability of the identified segments, with a plan to address any fairness issues only if they become a significant public relations problem. Option D. Utilize segmentation techniques that are known for their complexity and opacity, arguing that the sophistication of the model justifies its outcomes regardless of interpretability. The correct answer is A. Implement a segmentation model that prioritizes predictive accuracy above all else, assuming that a statistically sound model will inherently be fair. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data mining for business partners, balancing the need for actionable insights with the ethical and regulatory obligations surrounding data privacy and responsible AI deployment. The core difficulty lies in identifying patterns that are predictive of customer behavior without inadvertently creating or perpetuating biases that could lead to discriminatory outcomes. Business partners, often driven by performance metrics, may push for aggressive segmentation or targeting strategies that, if not carefully scrutinized, could violate principles of fairness and transparency. The pressure to deliver immediate business value can sometimes overshadow the long-term implications of data-driven decisions. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a proactive and ethical framework for model development and deployment. It aligns with the principles of responsible data mining and AI, which are increasingly codified in regulatory guidelines and industry best practices. By focusing on identifying and mitigating potential biases before deployment, this approach demonstrates a commitment to fairness and non-discrimination. This is crucial for maintaining customer trust, adhering to evolving data protection laws, such as those that might be implied by the context of a business partner engagement, where data usage is governed by agreements and potentially broader consumer protection regulations, and ensuring the long-term sustainability of data-driven initiatives. The emphasis on transparency in model behavior and the establishment of clear governance mechanisms are hallmarks of professional data mining practice. Correct approach is analysis. One incorrect approach fails by prioritizing immediate business gains over ethical considerations. This approach risks deploying models that, while potentially profitable in the short term, could lead to unfair treatment of certain customer segments. This could result in reputational damage, customer backlash, and potential regulatory scrutiny for discriminatory practices, even if not explicitly illegal under current narrow definitions. It violates the spirit of responsible data use. Another incorrect approach overlooks the importance of ongoing monitoring and validation. Data drift, changes in customer behavior, or unforeseen external factors can render a model's predictions inaccurate or, more critically, introduce or amplify biases over time. Failing to monitor and reevaluate models post-deployment is a significant ethical lapse and a failure of professional due diligence, potentially leading to sustained unfair outcomes. A third incorrect approach focuses solely on model accuracy without considering the interpretability or fairness of the underlying patterns. While high accuracy is desirable, it does not guarantee ethical or responsible outcomes. A highly accurate model might achieve its performance by exploiting subtle, potentially discriminatory correlations that are not readily apparent, leading to unintended negative consequences for specific groups. This approach neglects the broader impact of the model on individuals and society. Professional reasoning. Professionals in data mining must adopt a risk-aware and ethically grounded decision-making process. This involves 1. Understanding the business objectives and potential data sources. 2. Conducting a thorough ethical risk assessment, considering potential biases and fairness implications from the outset. 3. Selecting appropriate data mining techniques that allow for interpretability and bias detection. 4. Implementing robust validation and testing procedures that go beyond simple accuracy metrics to include fairness and bias assessments. 5. Establishing clear governance and monitoring frameworks for deployed models. 6. Prioritizing transparency with stakeholders about the capabilities and limitations of the models. 7. Continuously learning and adapting to evolving regulatory landscapes and ethical best practices in AI and data mining. Question 15. Upon reviewing the outputs of an IBM SPSS modeler predictive model designed to identify high-potential sales leads, how should a data mining professional best communicate the model's findings to the sales management team, who are primarily focused on actionable strategies rather than the intricacies of model construction? Option A. Share only the list of leads identified as having the highest conversion probability, without mentioning any potential for error or the underlying predictive logic. Option B. Focus on the overall accuracy of the model, stating that it correctly identifies a high percentage of future sales, and use this as the sole justification for prioritizing these leads. Option C. Provide a detailed technical report on the model's algorithms, feature engineering steps, and statistical performance metrics, assuming the sales management team can interpret these technical details. Option D. Present a summary of the model's predictions, clearly outlining the probability of each lead converting, along with a discussion of the model's limitations, assumptions, and the confidence intervals associated with the predictions, translated into potential business impact. The correct answer is D. Present a summary of the model's predictions, clearly outlining the probability of each lead converting, along with a discussion of the model's limitations, assumptions, and the confidence intervals associated with the predictions, translated into potential business impact. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data mining projects where business partners, often with varying levels of technical understanding, need to interpret and act upon predictive model outputs. The challenge lies in ensuring that the insights derived from IBM SPSS Modeler are communicated effectively and ethically, preventing misinterpretation that could lead to poor business decisions or regulatory noncompliance. The pressure to demonstrate immediate value can sometimes lead to oversimplification or the omission of crucial caveats, which is professionally risky. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured and transparent communication strategy. This means clearly articulating the model's purpose, its limitations, the assumptions made during development, and the confidence intervals or uncertainty associated with its predictions. For business partners, this translates to providing actionable insights that are contextualized within the model's capabilities. This aligns with best professional practice by fostering informed decision-making, promoting trust, and adhering to ethical principles of data use and communication. It ensures that stakeholders understand that predictive models offer probabilities and trends, not absolute certainties, thereby mitigating the risk of acting on flawed assumptions. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to present the model's predictions as definitive facts without any qualification. This is professionally unacceptable because it misrepresents the nature of predictive analytics, which inherently deals with probabilities and potential outcomes, not guaranteed future events. This can lead to significant financial or strategic missteps if business partners make decisions based on an illusion of certainty. Ethically, it violates the principle of honesty and transparency in reporting findings. Another incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the technical aspects of the model's performance metrics, e.g., accuracy, without translating them into business implications or explaining what they mean in practical terms for the business partner. This is professionally problematic, as it fails to bridge the gap between technical execution and business value. It can lead to confusion and a lack of confidence in the model's utility, as stakeholders may not understand how to apply the technical results to their operational decisions. This also risks overlooking potential biases or limitations that might be evident in the performance metrics but not explained in a business context. A third incorrect approach would be to selectively highlight only the most favorable predictions or outcomes from the model, while downplaying or ignoring less favorable ones. This is a severe ethical and professional failure. It constitutes a form of data manipulation or biased reporting, intended to create a more positive impression than is warranted by the data and the model's performance. This erodes trust, undermines the integrity of the data mining process, and can lead to decisions based on an incomplete and misleading picture of reality. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a stakeholder-centric communication framework. This involves understanding the audience's technical proficiency and business objectives. The process should begin with defining the problem and the desired business outcomes. During model development, it's crucial to document assumptions and limitations. When presenting results, the focus should be on translating complex findings into clear, actionable business insights, always accompanied by appropriate caveats regarding uncertainty and model scope. This iterative process of understanding, developing, and communicating ensures that data mining efforts deliver genuine business value responsibly and ethically. Question 16. System analysis indicates that a data mining project using IBM SPSS Modeler has progressed to a stage where a new, potentially sensitive customer data source has been identified for integration. The initial risk assessment, conducted at the project's commencement, did not account for this specific data source. Which of the following actions best reflects a responsible and compliant approach to managing this emerging risk? Option A. Inform the project sponsor about the new data source and request guidance on whether to proceed with integration, without undertaking an independent risk review. Option B. Immediately halt the integration of the new data source and initiate a comprehensive reevaluation of the project's risk assessment, focusing on the implications of this new data. Option C. Proceed with integrating the new data source, assuming the initial risk assessment adequately covers potential issues, as the data is from a trusted internal partner. Option D. Continue with the project as planned. focusing on the technical aspects of data integration and deferring any risk reassessment until after the model has been developed. Correct answer is B. Immediately halt the integration of the new data source and initiate a comprehensive reevaluation of the project's risk assessment, focusing on the implications of this new data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data mining projects where the initial risk assessment, a crucial step in ensuring compliance and ethical data handling, is based on incomplete or outdated information. Professional challenge lies in recognizing the limitations of the initial assessment and proactively addressing potential risks before they materialize into regulatory breaches or reputational damage. The urgency stems from the need to balance the project's progress with the imperative of robust risk management, especially when dealing with sensitive customer data. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a proactive and iterative risk assessment process. This means acknowledging that the initial assessment is a starting point, not an endpoint. Best professional practice dictates that when new information or potential risks emerge, such as the discovery of a new data source with potentially sensitive attributes, the risk assessment must be revisited and updated. This aligns with the principles of responsible data mining and the need for ongoing due diligence. Specifically, within the context of IBM SPSS modeler data mining for business partners V2, this iterative approach ensures that the project adheres to the spirit and letter of any relevant data protection and privacy guidelines that would be implicitly or explicitly covered by the training material scope. It demonstrates a commitment to identifying and mitigating risks throughout the project lifecycle, rather than relying on a single, static evaluation. Incorrect approach is analysis. Proceeding with the project without re-evaluating the risk assessment after discovering the new data source is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for potential privacy implications. This approach risks violating data protection principles by potentially processing sensitive data without adequate safeguards or consent mechanisms, which could lead to penalties under relevant data privacy laws. Assuming the initial risk assessment is sufficient because the new data source is from a trusted internal partner is also professionally unacceptable. Trust does not negate the need for a formal risk assessment. Regulatory frameworks often require objective evaluation of data types and their associated risks, regardless of the source's perceived trustworthiness. This approach overlooks the possibility of unforeseen risks or misinterpretations of data sensitivity. Focusing solely on the technical feasibility of integrating the new data source without considering its risk implications is another critical failure. Data mining projects must balance technical capabilities with ethical and regulatory considerations. Prioritizing technical integration over risk assessment can lead to the inadvertent exposure or misuse of sensitive information, resulting in regulatory noncompliance and damage to the business partner's reputation. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-aware mindset throughout the data mining lifecycle. This involves 1. Establishing a baseline risk assessment at the project's inception, clearly documenting assumptions and identified risks. 2. Implementing a process for continuous monitoring and reevaluation of risks, particularly when significant changes occur, such as the introduction of new data sources or changes in data usage. 3. Fostering open communication channels to report and discuss potential risks and concerns among team members and stakeholders. 4. Prioritizing data privacy and ethical considerations alongside technical objectives, ensuring that all data handling practices are compliant and responsible. 5. Documenting all risk assessment activities and mitigation strategies thoroughly. Question 17. Examination of the data shows a significant reduction in processing time for customer inquiries when a specific automated response is triggered. This suggests an opportunity to universally apply this automated response to all incoming inquiries to maximize efficiency. However, a preliminary review indicates that this automated response may not fully address the nuances of certain complex inquiry types, potentially leading to customer dissatisfaction or the need for subsequent manual intervention. Option A. Implement the automated response for all inquiries, but simultaneously increase the staffing levels in the customer service department to handle any escalated or dissatisfied customers. Option B. Implement a phased rollout of the automated response, starting with a pilot group of less complex inquiry types, and gather feedback from customer service representatives and a sample of customers before expanding to all inquiry types. Option C. Immediately deploy the automated response to all incoming customer inquiries to achieve maximum efficiency gains as indicated by the initial data analysis. Option D. Revert the data analysis and focus on identifying other areas for optimization that do not involve customer-facing interactions to avoid any potential negative customer impact. The correct answer is B. Implement a phased rollout of the automated response, starting with a pilot group of less complex inquiry types, and gather feedback from customer service representatives and a sample of customers before expanding to all inquiry types. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization where initial data analysis suggests a seemingly straightforward solution, but a deeper understanding of the underlying business context and potential downstream impacts is crucial. The professional challenge lies in balancing the desire for immediate efficiency gains with the need for robust, sustainable, and compliant process improvements. Overlooking the interconnectedness of business processes can lead to unintended consequences, such as increased risk, regulatory noncompliance, or customer dissatisfaction, all of which can negate the initial benefits. The correct approach, which involves a phased implementation with pilot testing and stakeholder feedback, represents best professional practice because it aligns with principles of responsible data mining and process management. This method allows for the validation of the optimization hypothesis in a controlled environment, minimizing disruption and risk. It also ensures that the proposed changes are practical and beneficial from the perspective of those directly involved in the process, fostering buy-in and facilitating smoother adoption. Furthermore, this iterative approach allows for the identification and mitigation of any potential regulatory or ethical issues before widespread deployment, ensuring adherence to the IBM SPSS modular data mining for business partners V2 framework, which implicitly emphasizes responsible and ethical application of data mining techniques. An incorrect approach that bypasses pilot testing and stakeholder consultation, opting for immediate, large-scale implementation, fails to uphold professional standards. This haste can lead to the introduction of unforeseen errors or inefficiencies that impact multiple business units, potentially causing significant operational disruption. From a regulatory perspective, such a broad, unvalidated change could inadvertently violate data handling or operational compliance requirements without proper oversight and risk assessment. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on the identified data anomaly without considering its broader implications on other business functions or customer interactions is also professionally unsound. This narrow focus ignores the holistic nature of business processes and can lead to optimizations in one area that create bottlenecks or inefficiencies elsewhere. Ethically, this could lead to a situation where a process is improved for internal efficiency, but at the expense of customer experience or data integrity, which is a failure of due diligence. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly understand the business context and the implications of any proposed optimization. Second, develop a clear hypothesis for the optimization. Third, design a controlled experiment or pilot program to test the hypothesis. Fourth, gather feedback from all relevant stakeholders. Fifth, analyze the results of the pilot and refine the approach. And finally, plan for a phased rollout with ongoing monitoring and evaluation. This systematic process ensures that data mining efforts lead to genuinely beneficial and compliant process improvements. Question 18. Performance analysis shows that a newly developed IBM SPSS modular data mining model for customer segmentation has been deployed across the entire sales force. To assess its actual business impact, which of the following approaches would best demonstrate its effectiveness and adherence to responsible data use principles? Option A. Implement a controlled experiment such as a phased rollout or a /B test, comparing the sales performance of segments exposed to the new model's insights against a control group using the previous segmentation method. Option B. Gather anecdotal feedback from a select group of sales representatives regarding their perceived usefulness of the new segmentation insights. Option C. Conduct a retrospective analysis of sales performance data from the period before and after the model's full implementation, attributing any observed changes solely to the new model. Option D. Assume the model's positive impact based on its high accuracy metrics achieved during the development phase, without further empirical validation in the live business environment. The correct answer is C. Conduct a retrospective analysis of sales performance data from the period before and after the model's full implementation, attributing any observed changes solely to the new model. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data mining projects where the impact of a new model needs to be assessed against existing business processes. Professional challenge lies in selecting an appropriate and defensible method for impact assessment that aligns with business objectives and regulatory expectations, particularly concerning the responsible use of data and the demonstration of business value. The need for a robust impact assessment is amplified by the potential for the new model to influence critical business decisions, making it imperative to understand its true effect and avoid unintended consequences. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a controlled experiment, such as an A/B test or a phased rollout, where the new model's performance is directly compared against the existing process or a baseline. This method provides a statistically sound and empirically verifiable measure of the new model's impact on key performance indicators, KPI. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach ensures transparency and accountability. It allows for the quantification of benefits and risks before full deployment, aligning with principles of responsible innovation and data governance. This method is crucial for demonstrating the business value of the data mining initiative and for justifying the investment, while also providing a mechanism to identify and mitigate any negative impacts early on. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to solely rely on retrospective analysis of historical data after the new model has been fully implemented. This method is problematic because it lacks a clear counterfactual. It's difficult to isolate the impact of the new model from other concurrent changes in the business environment or market conditions. This can lead to inaccurate conclusions about the model's effectiveness and potential regulatory or ethical missteps if the model is found to be detrimental without a clear understanding of why. Another incorrect approach is to base the impact assessment solely on qualitative feedback from a small group of users without objective performance metrics. While user feedback is valuable, it is subjective and may not reflect the broader impact on business outcomes. Relying on this alone can lead to a biased assessment and fail to meet the rigorous standards expected for demonstrating business value and compliance with data governance frameworks. This approach risks overlooking systemic issues or unintended consequences that could have regulatory implications. A third incorrect approach is to assume the new model's impact will be universally positive based on its technical performance metrics alone, without a direct comparison to the existing process. Technical performance, e.g., accuracy, precision, does not always translate directly to business impact. This assumption can lead to overestimation of benefits and underestimation of risks, potentially violating principles of due diligence and responsible deployment of data-driven solutions. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured approach to impact assessment that prioritizes empirical evidence and controlled comparison. The decision-making process should involve 1. Clearly defining the objectives of the impact assessment and the key performance indicators, KPI, to be measured. 2. Selecting an appropriate methodology that allows for direct comparison between the new model and the existing process or a control group. 3. Establishing a baseline for comparison before the new model is deployed. 4. Implementing the chosen methodology, e.g., A/B testing, phased rollout, and collecting data rigorously. 5. Analyzing the collected data to quantify the impact on KPIs, considering both positive and negative effects. 6. Documenting the findings and using them to inform decisions about full deployment, model refinement, or further investigation. This systematic process ensures that the impact assessment is objective, defensible, and aligned with both business goals and regulatory expectations for responsible data use. Question 19. Strategic planning requires a careful balance between leveraging customer data for enhanced business outcomes and upholding ethical data practices. A business partner has requested the implementation of advanced personalization techniques using customer data to drive targeted marketing campaigns, aiming to significantly increase sales conversions. However, the proposed methods involve analyzing detailed customer behavior patterns without explicit, granular consent for this specific type of personalization. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible approach to address this request? Option A. Reject the business partner's request entirely, citing privacy concerns without exploring any alternative data utilization strategies that might align with ethical guidelines. Option B. Propose a clear opt-in mechanism for customers to explicitly consent to the use of their data for advanced personalization, ensuring transparency about how their data will be used and the benefits they will receive. Option C. Proceed with the personalization using the existing customer data, assuming implied consent due to their existing relationship with the company and the potential for improved customer experience. Option D. Implement personalization based on broad terms in the privacy policy that allow for data usage for marketing purposes, without specifically detailing the advanced personalization techniques involved. The correct answer is B. Propose a clear opt-in mechanism for customers to explicitly consent to the use of their data for advanced personalization, ensuring transparency about how their data will be used and the benefits they will receive. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a classic ethical dilemma in data mining, where the pursuit of business objectives clashes with the responsible and transparent use of customer data. The challenge lies in balancing the potential for increased revenue and customer engagement through personalized marketing, with the ethical imperative to respect customer privacy and avoid manipulative practices. The business partner's request, while seemingly beneficial, could lead to unintended negative consequences for customers and reputational damage for the company if not handled with extreme care and adherence to ethical guidelines. The pressure to deliver results for the partner adds a layer of complexity, requiring a professional to navigate competing interests. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes transparency and customer consent. It acknowledges the potential benefits of data mining for personalization, but insists on obtaining explicit consent from customers before using their data for such purposes. This aligns with ethical data handling principles and regulatory frameworks that emphasize data subject rights, such as the right to be informed and the right to consent. By proposing a clear opt-in mechanism, the professional demonstrates a commitment to responsible data stewardship, building trust with customers and mitigating legal and reputational risks. This approach ensures that personalization efforts are not perceived as intrusive or exploitative, fostering a positive and sustainable customer relationship. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with the personalization without explicit customer consent, relying on the assumption that customers implicitly agree to data usage by being a customer. This is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. It violates the principle of informed consent, which is a cornerstone of data privacy regulations. Customers have a right to know how their data is being used and to have the choice to opt in or opt out. This approach risks data breaches, regulatory fines, and severe damage to the company's reputation, as it can be perceived as deceptive and disrespectful of customer privacy. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the partner's request outright without exploring ethical alternatives. While caution is necessary, a complete refusal might stifle innovation and miss opportunities for legitimate, customer-centric data utilization. A more professional response would involve engaging with the partner to understand their objectives, and then proposing data-driven solutions that are ethically sound and compliant with privacy regulations, such as anonymized data analysis or aggregated insights, rather than individual-level personalization without consent. A third incorrect approach is to implement personalization based on inferred consent, or by using broad, vague terms in privacy policies that do not clearly outline the specific use of data for personalized marketing. This is ethically questionable and often legally insufficient. Regulations typically require clear, unambiguous consent for specific data processing activities. Relying on ambiguous language can be interpreted as an attempt to circumvent data privacy obligations and can lead to legal challenges and customer distrust. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such dilemmas should employ a decision-making framework that integrates ethical considerations with regulatory compliance and business objectives. This involves 1. Understanding the request and its potential implications. 2. Identifying relevant ethical principles, e.g., transparency, fairness, respect for autonomy, and legal/regulatory requirements, e.g., data privacy laws. 3. Evaluating different approaches against these principles and requirements. 4. Seeking clarification or alternative solutions when necessary. 5. Prioritizing customer trust and long-term sustainability over short-term gains. In this case, the professional must advocate for a data usage model that respects customer autonomy and adheres to privacy best practices, even if it requires more effort or a modified approach to the partner's initial request. Question 20. Analysis of a proposed process optimization within a customer service workflow, identified through IBM SPSS modeler, that suggests a significant reduction in average handling time by rerouting all incoming queries to a specialized Tier 1 support team without further validation of the impact on customer satisfaction or first contact resolution rates. Option A. Conduct a pilot program where a subset of incoming queries is rerouted to the specialized Tier 1 team for a defined period, while simultaneously monitoring key performance indicators including customer satisfaction, first contact resolution, and the original average handling time for the control group. Option B. Rerun the data mining analysis using a different algorithm within IBM SPSS modeler, assuming the current output might be an anomaly, and a different model will reveal a more nuanced optimization. Option C. Implement the proposed rerouting immediately to capitalize on the identified efficiency gains, as the data mining output from IBM SPSS modeler indicates a clear improvement. Option D. Focus solely on the reduction in average handling time as the primary metric for success, as this was the direct output of the data mining exercise, and address any potential customer satisfaction issues in a subsequent, separate initiative. The correct answer is C. Implement the proposed rerouting immediately to capitalize on the identified efficiency gains, as the data mining output from IBM SPSS modeler indicates a clear improvement. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization, where the desire for rapid improvement can conflict with the need for robust, data-driven validation. The professional challenge lies in balancing the urgency of business needs with the integrity of the data mining process, ensuring that optimizations are not based on spurious correlations or incomplete understanding. Careful judgment is required to avoid premature conclusions that could lead to ineffective or even detrimental business decisions. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it adheres to the principles of rigorous data mining and process optimization, as outlined by IBM SPSS modeler data mining for business partners V2. This involves a systematic evaluation of the proposed optimization, including a review of the underlying data, the methodology used for identifying the optimization opportunity, and a plan for pilot testing or phased implementation. This ensures that the optimization is statistically sound, practically feasible, and aligned with business objectives, minimizing the risk of unintended consequences. It also aligns with ethical data handling and responsible AI principles by ensuring that decisions are based on validated insights rather than assumptions. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate implementation without validation poses significant regulatory and ethical failures. It risks making business decisions based on potentially flawed or incomplete data analysis, which could lead to misallocation of resources, customer dissatisfaction, or even regulatory noncompliance if the optimization impacts data privacy or fairness. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes a single, unverified metric over a holistic process view fails to acknowledge the interconnectedness of business processes. This can lead to optimizations that improve one aspect at the expense of others, creating new inefficiencies or problems elsewhere. Ethically, this demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the comprehensive impact of changes. A professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the business problem and the desired outcome of the optimization. Second, thoroughly review the data mining methodology and results, seeking to understand the drivers behind the proposed optimization. Third, assess the feasibility and potential impact of the optimization across the entire process, considering all relevant stakeholders and systems. Fourth, develop a validation strategy, which might include pilot programs, a/B testing, or phased rollouts to confirm the effectiveness of the optimization before full-scale implementation. Finally, establish clear metrics for ongoing monitoring and evaluation to ensure sustained benefits and identify any emergent issues. This systematic approach ensures that process optimization is data-driven, ethically sound, and aligned with long-term business success.